Hey guys, this is Miss Stam, and today we're going to talk about plate tectonics. Let's start with the history. Alfred Wegener proposed continental drift theory. He saw how continents could fit together like a puzzle and analyzed similar fossil deposit patterns that flowed naturally from one continent to another. This was basically that it started as Pangea and the continents slowly drifted apart. We then had new technology in the 1960s, which led to plate tectonic theory. They were mapping the seafloor. This is the theory that states that the lithosphere is divided into tectonic plates that slowly move on top of the asthenosphere. The first type of plate boundary that we're going to talk about is a convergent boundary. You might remember from the song, Convergent Collide. So these are the plates that are moving towards each other. You'll notice right here we have the arrows pointing towards each other. And so we have three different types of convergent boundaries. The first is ocean to ocean, and there's some different crustal features that are created from these types of boundaries. We can have island arcs. This is when the ocean to ocean plates, they meet, they collide, and one subducts. So it's a subduction because it's more dense. It goes under, and we have crust that is destroyed. As that crust is destroyed, it's because the crust is moving closer to the hot core of the earth. It gets melted. And when that crust is melted, it then rises up as magma and forms these island arcs. And these island arcs can produce volcanoes. So another type that we have is continental to continental. And this is when we have mountains created. There's a folding of the crust. And some examples include the Himalayan mountains. And the third type of convergent boundary is ocean to continental. And in this one we have things like trenches. When we have the subduction of the denser plate will go under, and that long trench is formed where one is going under and the continental plate is there with it on top. So as this subduction occurs, crust is destroyed, and once again we can have volcanoes form because as that crust is destroyed and melted, it then rises back up. Remember, less dense rises. As it's heated, it becomes less dense and rises back up to the surface where we can have things like volcanoes. We can also have ocean ranges form. These are mountains underneath the ocean, and it's where the crust is destroyed and the magma rises up and cools to form a mountain range underwater that just has not reached the surface yet, and these can be volcanic. The next type of plate boundary is divergent. So a divergent boundary is one where plates are being pulled apart. Notice these arrows right here are pointing away from each other. So the crustal features that are created at divergent boundaries, where divergent divide, we have the ocean floor created. So what happens is as these plates move apart, the crust is separated and magma can rise up to the surface. And as it rises and cools, it forms new crust. And as that pulls away again, more magma rises, more crust is formed, and we end up with the ocean floor forming from this. This can cause mid-ocean ridges, which is somewhat like a mountain range underwater. Or if it's at a continental boundary, you can have rift valleys like the African Rift Valley, where it is pulling apart. Eventually, these rift valleys could fill with water and become an ocean or sea type thing. And when we have a divergent boundary, it's important to know that crust is created. As those plates are moving apart, the magma is coming up and creating new crust. The final type of boundary is transform. Like the song, transform plate boundaries slide. These are boundaries that are sliding past each other. Notice the arrows are pointing in different directions. They're sliding past each other. The crustal features that are created at these boundaries include earthquakes. So it's not really a feature, but an effect. As these plates are moving past each other, pressure will build up. They'll get caught against each other because they're not smooth. And as that pressure builds and builds, all this energy is being stored. And once they break free, you have that violent shake that causes an earthquake. We also have faults or cracks that form. So as the earth is sliding past itself, these cracks or faults will form in the earth. And then crust is neither created nor destroyed. We just experience these earthquakes. And back before Christmas, we watched the movie San Andreas, and you guys saw where this tension built up at these faults, and then these earthquakes, these massive earthquakes happened. All right, so take a minute to finish copying down these notes. I know there's a lot, but it's important to remember, just like the song, and remember those hand motions. We have convergent collide, bringing your hands towards each other to form a mountain. Divergent divide, where you pull your hands apart to make a mid-ocean ridge or rift valley. And transform plate boundary slide, where you're going to slide your hands past each other, and this would cause an earthquake. And lastly, you guys are going to do a card sort. When you get your card sort, set out these 3 categories. You should have 3 categories. We have convergent, divergent, and transform. You're going to receive 18 cards, and you're going to divide these cards into the appropriate category. Each category will end up with having 6 cards. And these cards are definitions or examples of those types of boundaries. Good luck and great job.